All right, drawer number 3. Yeah, this is where I keep pretty much all my wrenches and my screwdrivers and pliers. It looks kind of like a mess, but that's mostly because I haven't really done a whole lot of organizing in here. This is not where tools go to die, but it is where tools that don't make the cut to go on my roll cart end up in here. And I just have all kinds of stuff in here. I have a bunch of standard sizes of these big giant wrenches. I use those not very often, but they are useful. I have some standard ratcheting wrenches. If I am working on an older vehicle that ends up using those, I do like having the ratcheting function on them. And then if I'm having to loosen something, I typically use like a ratchet with a socket on the end. And then I have a bunch of my wrenches, my old ones. They're still in here. They're just kind of scattered all over the place, and I use them however I need them. This one I believe I cut to undo like an air suspension, like 10 millimeter, that was really thin in a weird spot because I had already installed something when I wasn't supposed to. And then removing that line was extremely difficult, so I kind of cut that to fit. And as you can see, it kind of gave its last one bent a little, but it ended up getting that off. This stuff is made, I got it off the Cornwell truck. It's basically like a 2-part like super glue. One part of it is like a type of powder, and then the other is basically feels and acts a lot like super glue, but it'll combine with that and make it an extremely hard material. And then you can actually sand it and do things like that. In the promotion material for this, or like the actual instructions, it tells you can use it on coolant repairs. And we tried it on a piece of equipment around here, and it did work. It actually did hold coolant, so you can do that. I don't like trusting stuff like that for customers' vehicles, but if you have a piece of equipment where something's leaking, that might actually not be a bad deal. I got these magnetic bits from Cornwell, and I ended up not liking them. The magnet part just kind of sticks to everything. It's really strong, which is good, and I sometimes just cut the top off of them if I'm replacing my extension. And then they came with these wobbles as well, but you can really only fit short sockets on them, and then small stuff you really can't stick on the end of it because this part actually restricts it from going in there. Things like Torx bits and hex bits and stuff like that, you can't use those, so I ended up just not wanting them because of that. I have another set of these stubby wrenches, but these don't have the flex end on the end, they're just straight. Which are still pretty useful, and these are also a little bit shorter, so they fit in some extra areas. This is for the e-Torx bits, basically just some wrenches for that. These work kind of nice, but they don't have a lot of, like, you really can't move these in a whole lot of spaces where you're going to need to be putting them, so I would honestly like these if they just had the ratcheting portion in the top, so I might see if they make some of those and go get those. But so far I use these so infrequently that I don't even think that I want the ratcheting functions. But the time where I have needed them, I needed them to just move just a little bit so I could put it in there. So they just kind of didn't do their job correctly. This is a silicone gun. Before I came here, I didn't like using those tubes of silicone, and this is the one that we use at Mercedes. And at Mercedes, I was tired of having to borrow the shop one, so I actually just bought my own. And then they would give us these big tubes of silicone that you can use, and I had a couple of these tips that I just cut to size, so like 1, 4, 5, 2, and 3. I don't know why I said the numbering like that, but basically the heads were different sizes, so I could change the thickness of how much silicone they needed, because sometimes Mercedes would specifically tell you need to put a 2 millimeter bead of silicone all the way around this, and so I'm very particular on whatever work instructions say. So if that's what the manufacturer, especially Mercedes, told me to do, that's what I'm going to do, because a lot of those cars are very expensive, and I don't want to have an issue where silicone went in a place it wasn't supposed to. But I don't use it a whole lot anymore because now we have the Worth canisters, but it's still extremely useful, and I don't know if I end up taking this off if that's still going to be fresh. But these tubes are also pretty expensive. They can be up to like $40 sometimes, depending on what the supply looks like. So those are really not something I like buying a whole lot of. If I'm doing it for a customer's car, I may end up charging for that, but like as a supply. But I don't know. I don't like doing that either, because we're not going to be using the whole tube on their car. So unless it specifically says that we need to buy a tube of that, that's not really an option either. Then I have my whole pick set here, and as you can see, I kind of bend some of them. I don't use these really big picks, like enough to keep them in my roll car, so I just kind of keep them up here. And then I have my Torx screwdrivers, which I use a lot at Mercedes, and they end up in here because they're not used on every single car. And that extra little bits that I keep in my roll car works pretty fine. And then I have my very long reach plastic clip pliers. These are the best long reach ones I've ever used. The snap-on ones tend to really get in there where it's supposed to and get a lot of leverage. So that's been my favorite one. The ones that I had before, I forgot who they were made by, Lyle, I think. And this one I bent to, I think I was pulling an injector out or something. I can't remember, but that's why I don't have that one anymore, because I just basically modified it. I have a Mac adjustable wrench on here that I think was on promotion with something, so I bought it. But I ended up not using it a whole lot because I have my snap-on ones, and these don't have any teeth on them, so they still have the typical problem where they're not reliable to kind of put on a thing without it slipping off. It doesn't do it that often, but it still has the same uneasy feeling that you don't want on that. I got this guy. It's a 30-27 ratcheting one. That one's really useful for alignments if you need to break stuff loose, and then you just want to be really quick about it. It's there. I got a really big adjustable wrench. That one's useful for a lot of trucks and Jeeps and stuff where you need to do an alignment and then move that big giant thing. Really good for that. Got a breaker bar in here that I don't ever use. These are exhaust mount, like, removal tool. It basically will take the bushing off of that hanger. I use those quite frequently. Those are really useful. These are another spark plug boot removal tool. This one actually worked a lot. It just didn't work as well as that little plastic tool did. I ended up finding myself breaking them more with this tool than if I had just done it by hand. So I just tossed them in here, and they're not really ever used. They didn't work. I have some pistol grip pliers in here. I don't use them a whole lot, but these grip extremely tight, so they're really useful. And then if you're in a really tight area, that's not a bad thing to have on hand. Got some snap ring tools there. There's a little seal. I think it's a seal lip puller, so you can pop seals out, and it's kind of adjustable, so you can set it to whatever size you want. And the pin is missing. It's probably in here somewhere. I don't really know. This is for popping windshield wiper arms off of a vehicle. You just kind of put it around there, adjust to the size that you need, and it will take them off every single time. Really useful for that. I do a lot of wire repairs, and especially like pin repairs, so this tool's worked really nice. And then somewhere in here I have the kit that has all these replaceable heads, so you can change the size that you need. But this is the one that I found that fits pretty much every size that I'm doing, so I just keep that on there and tend to keep that ready. These are snap ring plier ends. This is actually something I got off of a bucket sale with a bunch of these, but it has extra additional heads for the snap ring pliers on there. I have some big cutters. These I mostly use for cutting things that are gonna be a problem and probably damage my good ones. So I just use those to either like get it started or just if I don't really care if it's gonna damage the pliers, I just need to cut it. That's what I'll do. I have an extra wrench. Once I replace my snap-on one, I just kind of tossed it in there. These I think are plastic clip removal pliers. You just pop them in there and take that out. Don't really use those a whole lot, or not often enough to keep ready to go. I have some vice grips. I actually don't use vice grips a whole lot. If I do use vice grips, I end up using those, but I just don't trust them, and they mar stuff up, so it's not my favorite tool to use, but they do have the purpose. And then I think these are the ones that fit on the heads for that. Little mini pistol grip pliers. That just kind of came with my other thing. I don't know what this is actually called, but I call it a wheelie deal. And I used to take that at the dealer when you got to take pinstripes off of a vehicle or stickers, or basically if I get an old toolbox and it's got a bunch of things on the side. This will not damage the paint, and will basically be taking all that stuff off. It gets very hot though, and you need to use it probably on an air drill and not an electric one, because it kind of adds a lot of load to whatever the device that's spinning that is. And then I have this for basically anybody that has coilovers. You can just use this as a universal tool to rotate those to adjust the ride height. It's kind of funny that vehicles coming in for ride height adjustments are most of the time really high-end vehicles or vehicles with air suspension, things like that. And then coilovers, I just charge the same thing and do a ride height adjustment on it, and then an alignment. So it's kind of funny that even normal vehicles, you can have that happen. These are the crappy pair of needle nose pliers that I had, and I should probably just throw these away, but I don't like tossing tools out. I would rather give them to somebody else that, you know, doesn't. If you don't have a pair, that's better than that, but I don't know why I have them. And this I got when I was early at Toyota. I'd ended up using snap ring pliers like very rarely, so that was useful at the time for the small minor jobs that I was doing. I don't like rebooting CV axle boots a whole lot, but I did do it a lot at the dealership at Toyota, and I still do that every once in a while here as well. So these are both of the kits to go ahead and remove and replace those. I forgot what these are for. These came in a bucket sale, and I didn't own any, so I think all 3 of these, I didn't know what they were. 4 of these, there's a bunch of tools in here. I have no idea what they are. So if you've ever seen this and you know what it's for, go ahead and let me know, because I have no idea. I just bought them because they were tools I didn't own. And if you don't know what a bucket sale at Snap-on is, basically the Snap-on rep is having a garage sale out of their house, and all the traded in tools or tools that didn't sell, you can just put them in a bucket, and then the bucket, I think this one was like $50. Everything that fit in that bucket was $50. So that's why I bought a bunch of tools that I didn't need. A lot of the tools are old too, so, or if I already own it, I'm not going to buy another pair of them. So I like buying tools that I don't have, because I'd rather have it, not need it, than need it, not have it kind of situation. But if I don't know what it does, it's basically useless to me. So I would really like somebody to let me know. I have my little tiny adjustable wrench. I got my entire kit that came with this one as well. And this one's great for holding stuff, and it fits in a lot of spaces that the normal one wouldn't. Like alignments, when I just need to rotate it, a lot of times the wheel, the arch will be in the way, so I tend to just use it to not be as much in there. I found that set of pliers in a vehicle recently. I think it was underneath the battery tray. I was removing some stuff, and I just found it in there, and, you know, kept them. Those could be kind of useful one day. What is that for? Oh, that is for, I think radiator hose clamps or something like that. I need to look up, but basically I think it's supposed to be so that you can, I don't know actually. I think it's actually for whenever you have those little plastic tabs or those metal tabs that go like that, and then you can put a bolt through them. I think this retightens those, and then that will reset the top part, the little notch in it, to hold it into place. This tool, which I also have no idea what it does. I think it's like a universal wrench. There is a part number on it, but I'm pretty sure you just put it on the bolt head, and then you can use it as whatever, and it's universal. But I'm not a big fan of universal tools. I tend to think that they do a bad job. This is another hose cutter set. This is the one that got ruined, and I tried to sharpen them, and they still kind of work okay. But after you sharpen them, you're not allowed to return them. So somebody bought me a new pair, and then I asked them if they wanted that, and they said no because they don't work. So I thought that was kind of funny, and I kept them. I have some hog ring pliers. They used to have some straight ones as well. I think I gave those to somebody to borrow, and I don't think I ever got them back. But basically, at Toyota, we had a recall where the seat heaters, I believe we had to replace all the seat covers on all those, which is actually the material that goes on top of them, and replace the seat heater grids. So I know how to take seat heaters off and put them back on, which is kind of cool. So I'd like to replace the leather on my car if I possibly could. And then these I think I found in a car. All the rusted ones, I tend to clean them later on, throw them in the ultrasonic cleaner. But for this time, I just kind of toss them in there until I have time to do that. And I don't ever use them, so they're just kind of in here. I'm not really sure what I plan to do with all these useless tools, but probably toss them in a kit somewhere for somebody to have in case of an emergency to really put them into some trouble. I do have these. These are nut crackers. They basically you put it on the end of a nut, and then that you just hammer down on it, and it's basically going to break the nut off. That's if you're in a really stuck situation, like you completely rounded it off, but you need to remove that so you can take a stud out or whatever you're doing. And That does work, but that is really a situation that you don't want to be in. This is for radiator caps. If the radiator cap is really hot, like those metal old ones, basically you can put this on there and turn it and take it off safely without hurting yourself or burning yourself. Some extra extensions, and then I think that's a line flaring tool. And then this I didn't go over, but I used this at Toyota actually because my the lead tech who was showing me stuff showed me that this is basically his brake pad spreader. So you'd put this in between the brake pads and then just crank down on it, and it would do that, and it works really well for that. Also works really well for holding things apart inside of an engine or things like that. It's still really useful, so I like using it. Really awesome tool. And I believe that's everything going on up here. So I'll move on to the next drawer. Yeah, this one, everybody's got one of these. It just kind of holds manuals and stuff like that. This one, this box actually has these grids on it. It's one of Snap-on's new systems that they have for their drawers. So I will eventually end up adding those little things onto there so I can organize this and keep things like all those AC seals, some extra plastic razor blades, things like that. Kind of toss them in there. But for now, I think I just have like magazines and stuff. So it's useful and things like that. I'm not too familiar on BMW ISTA's system yet. I use it kind of often, but I don't use it quite enough to know all that information on hand. So I keep that in there. This one's got some good measurement stuff in it, so I like kind of flipping through there and getting waveforms off of it. A lot of good diagrams. And this one, I'm not super familiar on diesel drivability. The exhaust systems on that. They tend to be a little bit tricky, especially some of the new GM stuff. So that's one of those that I just kind of keep in there as reference material. If you've never seen Gears magazine, that's a transmission specific magazine. We have a transmission rebuilder here in shop. So he tends to get these magazines, and after he's done with them, I'll come over and I'll read them. Not because I work on transmissions a whole lot, but because they have a lot of programming information. I program all the transmissions after he's done with them, so I need to know whether or not the transmission is programmable and how to do that correctly and all the problems that I could run into in that situation. So these are extremely useful. If you don't read them, you do need to know that if you're ever programming vehicles. This it's just kind of my like little office drawer. I just kind of keep like pens and stuff in there, and then all my tickets whenever I buy stuff throws you in the raffle, so do that. And then all the extra broken phones that I have. This one actually works. I use this one as my my phone for doing digital vehicle inspections. So this one I'm actually going to keep back up here because I do need it, and it's got an extended battery on it, so it typically lasts around like 2 or 3 days before I have to charge it. And then this one is my new version of that. I actually took it to get it replaced, the battery on it, because the battery just kind of died and it started swelling up and popped the back off. But I got it repaired, and now it's been like a couple of weeks and it won't charge anymore, so gotta do that. And then this one has a broken screen, and the camera's not really high def enough that I want to use it for work purposes, so I just kind of do that. And then I have some spicy ketchup here because sometimes Whataburger forgets my my stuff. I got a spoon here because I don't really like plastic silverware. Same thing with the cups. I'd rather have a good straw. And then, tell them just don't give me a straw. I have my own. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. Just some extra new face masks if somebody needs one of those. This, whenever we have vehicles come in with a breathalyzer, I have my own tip for that, so I'm not breathing in their stuff. I really don't like doing that. The idea of it seems pretty gross. And then I have some extra keys for my my Volkswagen that I got. And then some memory cards, just generic crap. All right, here's kind of more of a suspension drawer. This is for brakes, for rear. This whole kit is pretty nice. Things I added to that one are the one for the 3-prong. That one's for some of the newer Mercedes vehicles. And then this one is just kind of a universal 2-prong one that works. And I got this kit from Cornwell. It works really well, so never had any really issues with it. And people come borrow it all the time, so it must work correctly. This one's my ball joint remover. We have a giant snap-on one here in the shop, but I do have a personal one that I see somebody's lost my my piece on that. I need to go find that. That's pretty important. But yeah, this one takes out ball joints really well. I think this was like 70 or 80 bucks. I have a little diagram in there if somebody wants to borrow it. Like, just look inside for the instructions. Don't come ask me unless you have already looked at that and still couldn't figure it out. But I made the diagram pretty clear, so I don't have to waste my time doing that. This is a spark plug socket set, and then I added the extra really deep, heavy ones for a lot of Ford vehicles, and I just have the whole set of those, and I toss them in here. I'm going to end up just hollowing this out so I can toss all of them in there, but I do that. This is also for spark plug boots. The ignition coil boots can sometimes get stuck on it, so this will basically, you stick that down in there and hammer on it, and it'll cut it off, which is really useful. If you've ever gotten one of those stuck in there, that is here, I'll get you that number. That tool actually works extremely well. I've used it a few times. SP Tools 68450. Yeah, this tool actually works pretty well. I haven't had a failure with it yet, so I don't know if that's enough of a guarantee for it, but it definitely did work the times I needed to use it. And then this is just if I'm removing a control arm, like the ball joint, I just want to protect it because I'm reusing that part. I'll put these on there just so I don't ruin the boot on it, because sometimes when you're removing a lot of suspension stuff, you'll be sticking your pry bar near that area, and I would just hate to have to tear that and replace a ball joint as well, or some of them an entire control arm, so I'm not doing that. I have my O2 sensor socket set here. This one's pretty standard. If you ever got an O2 kit, it's all really the same. The only additional one on here is I have some extra spark plug socket, not spark plug, O2 socket rethreading tools. It came with one, but one of them I bought matching one of my friends, my coworkers at Toyota. He used one that he basically swore by it, and I was like, I'm gonna buy that too, because yeah, if you're tapping an O2 bung, you really don't want that to not work. And then just a regular CV axle socket set, nothing special there. Got my fuel line disconnect set, and this also works for some AC stuff. Yeah, I have the extra BMW one if you've ever needed to remove that. That tool I included in this kit, and then I included these extra two attachments on there to do that. And then I also added the Toyota little removal tool on that as well for AC lines, and that's pretty useful. But these kept rolling around in here. They would always tend to fly out, so I just kind of stacked them on top of that so that they would quit moving, because that was the last thing I wanted whenever that situation happened. So this one I may hollow out a section of it and then kind of add some plastic material to hold it, because this case does have a problem shutting every once in a while. This is just kind of my electrical drawer. I keep just a bunch of random stuff in it. Got my face mask, got some batteries, just some mouthwash if I ate some food. Yeah, some brake cleaning stuff, cables. This one's for my Zeus if I need to charge it. Like, it's running low on a battery, but I need to go on a test drive. I'll bring that with me. Hot glue gun, that's good for headliners if you're removing wiring harnesses that are attached to them. A lot of the time they're just hot glued on there from the factory, so you can use that to do that. I've got an extra wheel cap. We got that off of an extra wheel that we had bought for a customer, and it came with a spare one of those, so we went ahead and kept it. Some sanitizing wipes, a little candy, an actual electric soldering iron if I ever need it to get really, really hot. Most of the time the cordless stuff works fine. Some extra little chargers that I use, some USB stuff, my laptop chargers. I have a new camera head for my my borescope over there. I like using the 5.5 millimeter head. It's really, really small, but there are 8 millimeter heads as well, so pretty useful. Then I've got all my, this is an optional kit you can get with your Zeus. You can buy it separately, but basically if you want to work on OBD1 vehicles as well, you're probably going to end up needing these at some point. Really useful too, so like BMWs, the 20-pin connector on there. Mercedes-Benz, they've got their special little connector that you put on that. And then I've got a little kit here. It's kind of universal, works on a lot of vehicles for OBD1 stuff. To get the flash codes off of them, you basically just plug that into the port that you need it to, and it'll read out the codes for you, or at least flash that little light and make it a bit easier. And then this one I think is a jumping tool for Toyota ABS systems or something like that. And then I had my, you get the optional European package kit. It comes on a USB stick. Now I think it's all digital, but that's how I used to do it, because I got this all the way a while ago when I had my my Virus. And then these are just little keys that you can put into the top part of it. I think like Mercedes-Benz is one of them that has that special little attachment that you put those cards in, and was a really old feature that they had on scan tools, but now it's normal. So yeah, you basically put it inside of this. The scan tool will tell you which slot or which card you need to put into the slot, and it'll get into system. So if, like for Mercedes-Benz, for example, if you needed to get into the ABS system, it'll tell you to change the card from like 21 to like 18 or whatever. So pretty nice to have that. I do work on a lot of OBD1 cars because we don't really have a year restriction. If we don't really have we typically will tell a customer to bring it in, and we'll take a look at it and let you know whether we can work on it or not. It depends on the condition of the vehicle. We don't want to be working on pieces of junk, so we would like to know what the vehicle looks like before we decided to get involved with it. I have some business cards over here for strands. I have an extra vacuum gauge for my my vacuum tester in case I need that. And then in here, I think I have my ignition. Yeah, these are just ignition tools for my my Zeus. These basically plug right into the top of the Zeus, and you can use it like right out of the box, which is awesome. But man, they just need to make a regular kit for that, because I basically had to just make that kit. And it took a lot of trial and error to get it to work correctly. And then we got a Pico scope, so I ended up not needing it. So yeah, that's kind of how it works sometimes. What do we got here? Cool, another drawer. These are all my standard sockets. I don't work on a lot of old vehicles, but you know, vehicles that are using these sizes. But this is just basically where I keep all those, and I have different sizes, like 3/8 all the way to 1/2 inch, and short and long, and hex and stuff like that. So I just put them all in here. This is attaches onto the end of a 1/2 inch drill. You can basically, when I didn't have a drill, I put it on my impact, and it's got a chuck on there, so you can basically use it to put in really big bits. So that's what I did instead of buying a new drill, is I just use it on my impact. And then I think some of these are extra sockets that that I don't want to keep on my cart, but they're still useful, like 27, and these are mostly used for sensors, taking like, you know, oil pressure sensors or coolant sensors and things like that out. This I found in a car recently. It was just a little wobble with a 10. I was power washing the underbody, and this just flew out, and I was like, oh, that's cool. So tossed it in there, and then I have an extra 8mm. I thought I lost it, and then I ended up finding it in one of my toolkits, so kind of sucks. I think this is a Subaru ball joint press tool. This is for some really big Dodge vehicles, like the giant Ram trucks. Those you'll need to end up using this to take, man, what is it? Maybe the rotor off or the axle nut. I don't exactly remember, but you will need this, and this is the wrong size I bought, and then that's the correct size. What do we got here? Oh yeah, an axle rethreading tool. I've never had to use this, but sometimes if you're like on a Range Rover or something like that, the axle is nearly $1,000. So if you end up kind of screwing up the threads on that, and you just want to kind of go through it and make sure that all those are nice and good, so you can put the nut back on there, really useful tool for that. I've only used it twice. I rarely screw those up, but if I end up doing that, that's on there. This is just like I think it's like a press tool. I use it for pressing in wheel bearings. That's why it sits in the back over here, is because it's not used super frequently. And then my one of the coworkers here lost one of those pieces, so probably gonna end up making a big list and charging people a giant bill for the stuff they lost on here. Useful kit. You do not need to buy an expensive one of those. This is not expensive. I think this was maybe like 40 bucks or something. I mean, I just use it for pressing in and out bearings and stuff like that. So not a tool that I want to buy an expensive version that if it messes up, like, what's the point of that? This is for removing lines. It's really useful for like fuel systems, some coolant lines. But man, it's not as useful as I thought it would be. Air suspension lines works pretty good on that. Or just general pulling two things apart. The main thing that it works really well on are AC lines on Nissan vehicles. Occasionally you'll need to press against something and then pull the line in that direction. They like to have those quick connects where it just basically has a little metal O-ring, like the spring inside of there that clips in, and then like pulling the line out, they can get really, really stuck in there. So this is a tool that will actually get a lot of those out. And it's only useful for that, really. I mean, sometimes it doesn't even do a whole lot, but I think I got it on sale for like, I want to say $100. And they're really nice quality stuff, but they don't, you know, they just don't have as many functions as I imagined they would. I've used them on a lot of different areas, and a lot of times they just don't fit. So, but they're pretty high quality, and they have a lot of a good feel, and they clamp down pretty tightly on stuff. Like, so yeah, they're useful, and their instructions came on a disc, which I thought was funny. Like, who does that? QR code, come on, put it on your website. I don't think I went to their website. I have this little Craftsman wrench that I got that has this kind of inverted part. Use this a lot on struts. If we're ever rebuilding them, you got to hold that top part on there, that top nut, and that's where I kind of put all the heads for that. So that goes metric and standard, and I think up to like 19 mil or something. Pretty useful. That's why I still have it. And then this is for the transmission lines with also those little quick connect those little C Jesus clips. If you don't know the reason why they're called Jesus clips, it's because you'll go to use a pick to pop it out, and then it just flies off and you yell Jesus. So that's the thing. But these are supposedly supposed to spread them apart and hold them in the spread position until you remove the lines, which actually I'm about to do some transmission lines, so I think I might try those out and see if they work. Oh yeah, this is for extractor bits. Basically you can set them inside of there with the square drive and hold them, and then I have some square bits and then some basically like inverted short square bits, so pretty useful. Those actually I use a lot if I'm using an extractor. That's the best way to do it. If you're removing giant pitman arms or the arm off of the steering gear for some of the older suspension type vehicles, this is a really good tool. Pretty expensive. The shop had one, and I actually wanted to use an impact on this. You're probably not supposed to, but I mean, it says not to, but that's why I just went ahead and bought my own, so I could go ahead and abuse that tool, break it if I wanted to, but I'm not doing that to shop tools. And then this is really useful. This is man, if you've never used this tool, go get yourself one, because it basically what it does is it spreads the there are some struts that are not held in with typical bolts. They're going to be basically be a tube, and then the control arm kind of just goes around there. Not the control arm, I guess the knuckle you could call it. It wraps around the strut, and then you have like a bolt, and it'll run through these little sections right here and basically clamp it together and hold on to the strut. So if you do not know how to remove these, basically what people will do is they'll stick a pry bar in between this part to try to spread them apart, but they're on extremely tight in some cases. Like a Dodge Dart, that's going to be a vehicle where it's on really tight, and it's going to get hard to remove that. So what this tool will do is basically put like a little wedge, and it'll mount onto the side of it. Man, I need a new pen. Yeah, it'll mount on there in a system like this, and then you can just put a socket on your ratchet and then just tighten it down. It'll press on there, spread that apart, and you can just slide the tube right out the top. Extremely useful tool, so much worth the money. It's worked every single time, and if you leave that tool attached on there, you can leave it spread while you go take the strut out, grab your new one, install it on there, and then you just release that, and then you can clamp it back down and put it in the exact spot you need to. So one of the best tools I've ever bought.